All right, let's dive into a truly radical transformation that happened back in the 13th century. This was a time when art and architecture, they literally burst into the light. And in doing so, they completely remade the world as people knew it. And, it all really started with this one massive, almost impossible question that the greatest minds of the era were obsessed with. How in the world do you build heaven on earth? And just look at the incredible leap they made. On the one hand, you have the old style, these dark, heavy, almost military-like stone fortresses. But on the other, wow, something completely new. Radiant buildings that seem to defy gravity, just soaring into the sky, filled with incredible light. So how on earth did they do it? Okay, so first, let's trace that architectural journey, from a dark fortress to a cathedral of light. The starting point was what we call the Romanesque style. And its main feature? Massive, incredibly heavy stone walls. These walls had to hold up the entire building, which meant windows had to be tiny and far apart. The result was an interior that was super dark and felt incredibly solid, almost like a defensive bunker for the soul. But then came an absolutely revolutionary idea: the stone skeleton. The idea at its core was just shockingly simple, but it changed everything. It was this: what if the walls didn't have to hold up the roof? What if you could totally separate the building's support system from the walls themselves? Okay, so let's break this down, because it's brilliant. Here's how this stone skeleton thing worked. First, architects put up these tall, skinny pillars inside the church. Then, they connected those pillars at the very top with this web of thin stone arches, or ribs. Now, those ribs are what actually supported the weight of the massive ceiling. And just like that, poof! The walls were totally free from having to do any of the heavy lifting. The result of this was, well, staggering. With the walls no longer needing to be solid stone, architects could open up 90% of the wall space for glass. This wasn't just an update, it was a complete reinvention of what a building could even be. And what was the point of all this glass? Well, it was deeply spiritual. The light itself was seen as divine. The idea was that by pouring light through these gigantic, colorful windows, you could give worshippers a radiant glimpse of the heavenly Jerusalem. But okay, this created a brand new problem, right? If your walls are now basically made of glass, where do you put the art? You see, this huge architectural shift caused a massive ripple effect that would change sculpture and painting forever. Yeah, with the walls suddenly transformed into glass, sculpture had to find a new way to exist. And this was the moment when statues really truly came alive. Just look at the difference here. The old Romanesque statues were often these really rigid, stretched-out figures that felt like they were just another part of the pillar. But in the new Gothic cathedrals, like the one at Chartres, statues became, well, they became individuals, standing free with their own personalities and their own sense of dignity. So where did all this new realism come from? Well, artists, especially in France, started rediscovering ancient Roman sculpture. They were learning how to make stone look like actual fabric, folding and draping over a real body, and they brought those classical techniques just roaring back to life. And this new obsession with realism wasn't just about copying old statues. There was a whole new confidence in just observing the real world. Take the artist Matthew Paris. When he was asked to draw an elephant, he didn't just fall back on old patterns, no way. He drew on from life. It was a huge signal that artists were now looking really closely at the world all around them. So this new spirit of realism in architecture and in sculpture, it all sets the stage for our final act, led by a truly revolutionary painter from Italy who would change the entire course of art history, a guy named Giotto. You can see the unbelievable shift Giotto created right here. Before him, painting was kind of like symbolic picture writing. Flat figures that were just there to tell a story. Giotto just threw that whole idea out. He started treating the wall like a stage, creating a believable, three-dimensional space for his figures to actually live in. So how'd he do it? With some absolutely groundbreaking techniques. He created this amazing illusion of depth. He mastered foreshortening, that's the trick of making something look like it's coming out of the painting towards you, to give his figures a real 3D quality. And, maybe most important of all, he captured genuine human emotion, making his figures feel solid, real, and totally relatable. And the effect was just revolutionary. With Giotto, these sacred stories were no longer distant symbols. They felt immediate. They felt powerful, as if they were being enacted on a stage before the viewer's eyes. He didn't just show you what happened. He made you feel it. So what does this all add up to? The soaring architecture, the lifelike statues, the emotional paintings, it all points to a completely new way of seeing the world. You know, when you boil it all down, the revolution of the 13th century wasn't just about new techniques. It was really about a new confidence in human observation and in genuine human emotion. It was like a declaration that our physical world and our feelings inside it were worthy of being captured in great art. And that leaves us with one final, kind of thrilling question. If, in the 13th century, a building could learn to soar and a painting could learn to feel, just imagine what incredible breakthroughs could possibly come next. I'll tell you what, the stage was officially set for the Renaissance.